Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be showing you what's new in Inkscape 1.4. So diving right in, the first notable feature is that there are now two new galleries added to Inkscape, and these both drastically improve the UX. Those are going to be the Filters gallery as well as the Extensions gallery. So let's start off with Filters by going to Filters, Filter Gallery. So now you're going to see all filters available in Inkscape displayed here in a nice, neat gallery with thumbnail previews, so you can get an idea as to what each filter does. That was always the biggest drawback with filters in Inkscape, was that you had all these filters listed over here inside of filters, all these different categories, but it was really not clear as to what each one of these would do. Now the filter gallery fixes that. You can see exactly, for the most part, what these filters are going to do. Not all of these filters are great. I do think this opens up the door to allow developers to add new filters and improve existing filters now that people are going to use these more. But inside the filter gallery, you have your categories on the left, your thumbnail previews on the right. You've got a little gear icon here to change the thumbnail size. You can search for a filter you want to use. And then if you want to apply one of these filters, click on your design. And in this case, I'll double click to enter this group. Click on the main body here of my starship. And I'll come over here to Metallize Paint and click Apply. And that will apply that filter to my object. And I do have this set up as a clone, so all of these are clones, which means any change I make to this item is going to be reflected on all the clones. Before I move on to the next feature, this video is brought to you by my Inkscape course. Check out the link in the description. So let's undo that change and close out the filter gallery. Inkscape 1.4 now introduces the Extensions gallery, so we can access this by going to Extensions, Extension Gallery. And so this is going to be similar to the Filters gallery. We're going to now be able to see a thumbnail preview of all of the extensions available in Inkscape. Some of these are a bit technical, so the thumbnails aren't always super descriptive as to what each of these does. And in some cases, you'll just see these puzzle pieces, so that doesn't really help. But we now have a ton of different extensions, and it's going to show you some kind of thumbnail telling you what that's going to do. So similar to what I said about filters, having this extensions gallery should make it a lot easier for users to know what exactly that extension feature is going to do, and therefore it should drastically improve the user experience. Inkscape 1.4 now introduces the ability to use the shape builder tool with raster images. So I have a composition opened up here. Let's click on the SVG Inkscape logo and hold Control-Shift to scale it up and release. And I'm just going to double click to enter this group and click to delete these items. So now I can click on an object and shift click on an image and come over here to the shape builder tool. And if I hold shift, I can delete the image outside of our object, and letting go of shift, I can now just click to add these objects here, combine them with the image. And now when I hit the enter key, it will create a really cool clip using our object on the image. Just to give you guys a heads up, this feature is a little buggy, so proceed with caution. Inkscape 1.4 now has modular grids. This is an awesome feature if you're working with icons. So I have an icon here. If I hold Control and zoom out, you'll see now we have this modular grid. And what it's doing is it's just creating these little modules. So each module can contain a new icon if you want to design basically an icon set. And you can access this feature by coming over to Document Properties and come over here to Grids. And now you'll see this new option here called Modular. I already have a modular grid on here. I also have a regular grid on here, rectangular grid. And in this case, my page area for this icon was 24 pixels by 24 pixels. So that's what I set up for the block width. And then I just offset the X and Y origin to make sure that the modular grid aligns here with my document. I show you how to set up this modular grid as well as design this icon in my Inkscape course, so definitely check that out if you're interested. Another new feature in Inkscape 1.4 is you can now add an axonometric grid based on an aspect ratio. So inside the Grids tab, let's click on Axonometric. And here next to Angle X and Angle Z, you'll see we have this drop down, and when I click on here, it says set angle from aspect ratio, and you can type in an aspect ratio. So for example, let's go with 1.618 and click set. And the grid is going to update itself. The numbers here for angle X and Z will update, and you can add your isometric design. So let's click remove and exit out of here. The next new feature inside of Inkscape 1.4 is you can now adjust the angle of your gradients from inside the fill and stroke dialog. So let's open up that dialog. So now you'll see over here it says orientation, and you also have this slider. So this allows you to change the angle and direction of your gradient. That's just going to improve the user experience. There's now a new experimental fonts dialog that's designed to make it easier to find and preview fonts. You can access this by going to your preferences and down here under interface, Windows. You'll see under text and font dialog, we now have a font selector option and it says list fonts and styles, or use the new unified font browser and it says it's experimental. So make sure you have that option checked. You then have to close down Inkscape and restart it. And then the next time you open up Inkscape, you can go to text, text and font. And so now you get this new text and font dialog. And you'll see here that it's already a little bit buggy. So the preview text gets cut off. And even if I expand this, it gets cut off. And if I come over to settings, I can change the preview size, but it's still going to be cut off there. But you can change the sample text, which is cool. So let's type Inkscape 1.4. So what this is supposed to do is allow you to just easily preview different fonts in here. So as I scroll through, you can see Inkscape 1.4 is written in those different fonts, and I can change the view. So if I prefer this, right now this is a slightly better option because it's not getting cut off. And you can also change what is displayed here in this little preview. And you can sort this in different methods. So you can sort it alphabetically. You can sort it based on the lightness or heaviness of the font, or you can sort it based on which fonts are more condensed and which fonts are expanded. So let's go light to heavy here. So this is based on font weight, or condensed to expanded. So you got more condensed fonts towards the top. And as you move down the list, they get more and more expanded. I don't know if there's a scroll bar here. If there is, I can't see it. So I am having to use my mouse, which is a little tedious. But you can come over here and search for font names as well if you want to do that. And if you want to toggle showing the actual font name, you could turn that off and that cleans things up as well. So as Inkscape said very clearly, this is an experimental feature. It certainly acts that way, but I can see this being very useful in the future. The Swatches dialog in Inkscape 1.4 received an overhaul, and we can access this by going to View, Swatches. So as you can see here, we have a thumbnail of the different colors in a particular swatch. You've got the hex code. You've got a drop down here where you can browse the different swatches available in this particular composition. Let's go with Ubuntu. You can use the search bar here to search for a swatch. You can change how the swatches are displayed. And if you click the gear icon, you can adjust the preview size, the aspect ratio, and whether or not your swatch has a border, similar to if you were editing the options here under Configure. You can also upload swatches right here. So you'll see it says load palette of colors or swatches. And Inkscape 1.4, if I'm remembering correctly, now allows you to import, Adobe Color Book and Adobe Swatch Exchange files. There's now also limited support for CMYK swatches or CMYK colors. There's been some UI improvements. These are smaller improvements. Let's exit out of swatches. But for example, when we have this in full screen mode, we can see all of the available tools here. If I go into a smaller window mode, you'll see that some of the tools now get condensed into drop-downs. So you'll see here we now have this drop-down, and when I click on it, we get more tools available. And same with right here, these icons are now all condensed. So clicking on this, we now have the 4 options for selecting objects with our select tool or selector tool. And we also have the icons here for moving layers up or down in the stacking order. So things just get condensed when you condense Inkscape into a smaller screen size. That's just a general UI improvement. Inkscape 1.4 now includes the new dash icons theme. So you can access this by coming over here to Preferences. And under Interface Theming, you're going to see here under Icons, this drop down here at the very top, you now have the dash icons. And when you click on that, you get this really cool, almost like line art, minimalistic looking icon set. I really like this. I think it gives Inkscape a bit more of a professional look. However, if you're used to using the multicolor icons, it may be a little harder to find certain things on here. So nice job with that theme. I'm going to set this back to multicolor and exit out of here. The object attributes dialog has now been removed, and basically everything that was in that dialog is now merged into the object properties dialog. So it appears as if the long-term play here is to really build out the object properties dialog. And let's just demonstrate this. I'll grab the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. And we can right click and go to Object Properties. So for example, the fill and stroke attributes here used to be from the Object Attributes dialog. Now they're here in Object Properties. You are going to have a lot of options that are available in the Tool Controls bar. For example, you've got the option here to make corners sharp if you round your corners. And then you also have the Make Corners Independent LPE. You could set your object's ID, and this is actually used if you were to create a symbol out of your object. This is used as the name. And then you also have this interactivity drop down here with some options. So this allows you to enter JavaScript if you know JavaScript code, and therefore apply the interactivity here to your shape, in this case, the rectangle. So for example, you can set what happens when a user clicks on it, when they hover their mouse over it, when they mouse down on it. So this is all stuff that you would do inside a browser, of course, but they're trying to build that directly here into Object Properties. So let's exit out of here. The pattern editor also received some updates. So let's double click on the fill and we're going to come over here to pattern. So you now have these two options here, gap X and gap Y. This basically just allows you to add a gap either on the X or Y axis. So just a little piece of customization there. Inkscape 1.4 now introduces additional snapping options. So let's come back to preferences and we're going to go to behavior, snapping. And we now have these two sections. So for one, under restrict snap targets, you can now disable always snap to grids or always snap to guides. And then in relation to that, it says while always snapping to grid or guides, allow snapping to objects. So you can say, I want to snap to my guides, but I don't want to snap to all the different objects in my composition. So you can turn that off. Allow alignment snapping. So if you don't want those smart guides turned on that align objects to other objects, you can turn that off. Or allow distribution snapping. So if you don't want Inkscape to tell you when objects are equally spaced apart, you can turn that feature off as well. So this just allows a little bit more granular control over snapping in Inkscape. There are a ton of new features in Inkscape 1.4. I haven't covered them all in this video. I'm just going to read off the features that I left off. So the Node Tool shortcut key to convert a curved line segment to a straight line segment is now Alt double click instead of Control click. PDF export now supports creating internal links for table of contents sections. The escape key closes the welcome dialog. Nodes and handles appearances can be customized by adding a CSS document provided by the Inkscape team. And last but not least, the Affinity designer format is now supported in Inkscape. All right, but that's it for this video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell icon to be notified each time I have a brand new tutorial. You can check out a link to my Inkscape course, which uses the latest version of Inkscape, in the description. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.